Truck Talk Media.
C10 Talk, episode 260. Trevor Evans, a.k.a. Evan Trevors. Yeah, we'll get into all that, I promise. He's the camper dragging, Copenhagen hauling, C10 tire smoking dude out of Georgia, and we got him coming at you next. So hold on, here we go.
I just want to prove to the younger community, the older community, I'm not doing anything that I do to impress people. I'm doing what I'm doing just to have fun on my own budget. Do what makes you happy. That's what matters. You know what I mean?
Damn, son. Seeing is believing. And our title sponsor, United Pacific, makes seeing a whole lot easier. The crispness of the United Pacific LED headlights, taillights, marker lights, and more makes seeing and showing your truck that much better. It's time to upgrade your old dim halogens for new LED headlights, taillights, and more. They offer the brightest and latest LED technology. Headlights are available up to 1,600 lumens, easy to install, and it fits right in the OEM housing. How about upgrading to sequential taillights? They're DOT approved and ready to ship today. And for you 73 to 80 GMC and Chevy square body guys, they've got the new front parking lights, LED with stainless steel bezel. Think UP Car Parts. That's upcarparts.com.
Let me tell you what Melbourne Post is packing right here. I've got 411 posi track out back, 750 double pumper, Edelbrock intakes, scored over 30, 11-to-1 pop-up pistons, turbojet, 390 horsepower. We're talking some fucking muscle.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
Welcome to C10 Talk, your C10 truck podcast.
And now I have a chance to be the best, maybe the best in the world.
My old man is a television repairman. Got the ultimate set of tools. I can fix it.
I said I got 50 cents in that jukebox, and all I can hear is your mouth flapping. You hear that?
Here's your host, Ronnie Welch.
What is up, C10 Nation? Did I have a good time getting to know Trevor? Man, that dude could talk, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed listening to it, and I enjoyed his stories. I enjoyed listening to how he grew up, and I'm really stoked that a guy like this, kids like this, the future of our community is bright because of guys like Trevor. So, Trevor, thanks for doing what you're doing, and thanks for taking time to sit down with us, C10 Talk, and spread the love throughout the C10 Nation. Speaking of spreading love, how about the 259er? Old Scott Nelson, his new chassis company, Rev B. You guys are loving that one. The numbers don't lie. The interaction, the response, the feedback has been phenomenal. So Scott has said the same. He's got a ton of love, a ton of support. So thank you. And thanks for, letting us be the media outlet that can bring you that stuff and that you guys are tuning in. So we do appreciate it. And I thank Scott again just for sitting down with us and letting us share that story. So 259 Scott Nelson, if you haven't had a chance to listen to that, Scott worked for GSI for 20 years, and now he has his own company that he just started called Rev B Chassis Company, episode 259. Check it out. 258, our buddy Lou Perez, a.k.a. Cusio Sanchez, or Susio. If you're white, you say Cusio, and that's White People Taco Night. And if you have heard the right way to say it, it's Susio Sanchez. So Lou Perez is in 258. Same thing. What a great dude, a great man, a great husband, a great dad. Check out his story. Listen to his story. He's behind a lot of stuff going on out North Carolina, C10 Fall Revival, Relaxed. He's got a lot of irons in the fire, and ultimately his family is his priority. He loves the outlet of getting out there, building some rad rides, and he's done that. So 258 was a great one, and I'm glad that I got to know Lou a little bit better, and you will as well. If you get a chance to listen to 258, I highly suggest it. Now, a bonus pod that I'm going to drop after this is called Doja Mat. Doja Mats, however you want to look at it, but the company is Doja Mat. Well, I am a part owner in Doja Mat. If you haven't figured that out yet, I'm going to unveil all that in the bonus episode. But we just got some really big news this week. Officially, we are in a retail exclusive partnership with LMC Truck. So We created the mats, and now we have a huge partner in LMC as a retail partner. You can get them at dojamat.com. That's DOJAMAT.com. You can follow us on social media. Of course, IG is Doja Mats with an S, DOJAMATS. From the 4x4 to the truckin' to the square body, there's a ton of them, and we have usually we're trying to get the 5 colorways in each mat. That's going to be your red, your blue, your gray, your green, and your tan. So we're working on that, and we're working on adding all the numbers as well, so the year of your truck or whatever classic vehicle you're driving. So some really cool news for us that we can officially announce is LMC Truck is exclusive retail partner of Doja Mat. You can go onto LMC Trucks and you can order them up and get them shipped out, and they'll be there before you know it. So we've got multiple different colors and styles. Again, I'll drop a bonus pod. I've already recorded it, and if you just can't wait, you can jump on over to Bronco Talk and you'll hear the full thing. It's a little Bronco specific, so I was going to take some of that out and make a little bit of a bonus pod for you guys, but you can jump on over to Bronco Talk. Blake Bronco and I sit down and talk about the full story and the news with LMC and everything else. So that's going to be episode 51 of Bronco Talk if you want to check it out. Otherwise, give me a couple days, maybe a week, and I'll put it out a little bonus over here on the C10 platform. Okay? Again, thank you so much, Trevor, for sitting down, taking time away from what you got going on. Had a great time chatting it up with you. Bright young man. The future looks good for us. The trucks are cool, but the people, they're cooler. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week. Late. Here we go. Out of Georgia, the GA, Hotlanta. We've got Trevor Evans. You might know him as Evan Trevors, and we're going to get into that, but at Evan Trevors on the IG, one of the raddest, baddest, toast them up, roast them up, 85 Chevy trucks, and always late to the camp and drag, I guess. So, Trevor, thanks for taking time to sit down with us. I love your studio that you got there. It looks just like a cab of an 85 square body. So, acoustically, we're set. Thanks for taking time to be with the C10 Nation and sit down on C10 Talk, dude.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me. And yeah, we are in the cab of my square body. So that's it's my getaway, man. It's the best place to be.
Yeah, we set this up and he's like, hey man, how are we going to record this? I tell him, and he's like, all right, well, I got a couple little munchkins at home, little 2-legged money munchers. So it can get a little loud. So he's like, what do you think if I jump in the old truck? I said, let's do it. So what better place to be than in the cab of an old truck?
Absolutely. There's no better place to be, in my opinion.
Well, so did you grow up sitting shotgun? Did you grow up with trucks? Or, that's always our question is how did a guy get into trucking? I guess it's like a broken record. We've heard it so many different times, but we also tend to keep tuning in and love the story. So before we jump into how you got into trucks, how about this? Who's Trevor? Who are you? What do you do? Family, life? What's going on behind the beard and the guy doing burnouts pulling a camper?
So my name is Trevor Evans. You said it a little while ago. I'm from just north of Atlanta. Was a small town called Cumming, Georgia. I grew up here. I actually live in my grandmother's old home place. My parents' house is just right up the road. I grew up working my whole life with my dad. I've always done construction, got into a little bit of mechanicking, stuff like that. I have married the woman of my dreams. Her name is Megan. She has a stepdaughter that might as well be mine. Her name's Haley. We have 2 children together. Case is my little boy. He's about to be 3. And Madeline, my baby girl, she just turned 1. So, that's kind of who I am. What I've done, kind of done construction forever, off and on mechanicked a little bit. And now I'm a superintendent for a company called McGarrity Garcia down in Atlanta. We build residential homes, stuff like that, just having a good time, busy, but having a good time. So, that's who I am. That's kind of how that I come to be. You had mentioned, how that I got into hot rodding. Do you want to jump into that or?
Yeah, I just want to make sure you realize you did get all the bonus points. You talked about mama. You made sure that we talked, hey, she's the woman of my dreams. So you got all the bonus points. You went through the kids. Can you really go wrong? So Megan, Haley, Case, and Madeline, you guys are rocking it. And dad's where he's at. So it's good. It's good check mark. You got it all checked off. And now we can talk trucks. So now we got that.
Yes, sir. So, as I was growing up, my dad was, he was a big time drag racer. He always, took me to the track with him. My mom and my brother, all of us, we always went as a family. As I got older, I was probably about 10 years old, somewhere in that ballpark. And my dad was in a door slammer class. That's basically the kind of like the street outlaw guys, exactly where they're at. Steel, quarters, and roof. You can do fiberglass front end, fiberglass door, stuff like that, as long as it was a steel VIN number street car. And he was running like 770s in a quarter mile back in, I don't know, 2000. And that was pretty that was pretty unheard of back then in a door slammer car. That was really fast. It just got really expensive. One day we were at the track and there was a car crashed right behind him at the finish line. I was little and I was sitting on our golf cart at the starting line and all I could see is smoke, stuff like that. And it tore me up. I thought that something happened to my dad and, the car thankfully didn't hit him. Thankfully the other guy was okay. But it scared me. It scared my mom real bad. It really just kind of spooked all of us because not only was it close, it like clipped his parachute close. It was really close. And from that point on, he decided that instead of going 200 miles an hour in a quarter mile, that he and I were going to build old hot rods together. And that's where, I was still little, but I was holding the flashlight, all that good stuff, for him whenever that we were working on his 1955 Chevrolet Bel Air. And so it had a big block. It was a 5-speed car, a TKO 5-speed back then. And, we built that car and we actually took it on the Hot Rod Power Tour that year. When I was 10 years old, June, that was my very first Hot Rod Power Tour. Kind of a neat little snippet there. I've not missed one since. This year will actually be my 21st Hot Rod Power Tour. So I basically grew up with my dad playing hot rods. I couldn't get so involved in the drag racing because he was so fast. His car made over 1,000 horsepower 20 years ago, and there was not much that I could do to kind of help him there. But when we got into the hot rod stuff, he built the 55. Then we ended up getting a 67 Chevy 2. It had a big block. It was kind of race car setup. But he turned it down a lot, put a big 671 blower on it. That was pretty big back then. Big tire car. And I was like, holy smokes, this thing is so fast. And it was just a street car. It was just fun. We, hopped around, did burnouts, all that. But the car that I think I remember the most, my dad, he actually drove it to high school, a 72 Chevelle. And, we would always go out and that was his street racing car growing up. That was it. That was his tan truck to me. And so, we would always get in it and go out to our engine builder lives across town. And we would always go over there and he had this little bitty pad out in front of his shop. And I say little bitty, it was about as narrow as a 2-lane road and about the same square. And my dad could take that Chevelle and he would always spin tires in second gear. I knew it had a little ratchet shifter in the console. And I knew whenever it was in second gear and we were stopped, he was about to let it rip. And so much to the fact that I would when I was, little bitty, we'd be going down the road or we'd get to a red light or something. And I'd say, put it in 2, Daddy, put it in 2. Cause I just wanted to do burnouts. That was, the going fast was cool, but the burnouts is where I was, that's kind of where my heart's always been. And he could turn that Chevelle around literally on a 2-lane road, never touch a white line and never let out. He could spin that car from my house to Atlanta and back. No joke. And I guess that's kind of where my passion for burnouts came from. And, we got to take that. That was more of his kind of race car deal, just kind of street car, race car thing. And wasn't crazy fast, but it could melt a set of tires. And I always loved that car. That was a 72 Chevelle. And once we built the 55, it was more of a clean cruiser, like a really cool, nice car. Nice paint, leather interior, all that good stuff. And we took it on the power tour for 5 or 6 years. And then we built, whenever I was 15, and he had a 1955 Chevrolet truck, and we call it Mater. It's a rusty pickup. It actually has a blown big block 572 in it, with an 871 blower. Now it didn't start like that, but it's morphed its way up there. And he's always been known for big burnouts. Well, that truck could really melt some tires. And I mean, like, from the burnout box, like at the Tri-5 Nationals, everybody, and my dad's name's Jimmy Evans. In the Tri-5 Nationals, he is famous up there. He takes that old rusty pickup with a blower, starts in the burnout box, and he literally goes through the finish line in the quarter mile, smoking the tires, then backs back up and makes a 10-second quarter mile pass. Just cool, fun stuff. But that, I guess it was kind of just bred into me. It was never forced. He never made me get into it. There were times, like in high school, when I was big into football and stuff, I wasn't as big into cars. And, he let me play football. He supported me. My mom supported me. My family's always been there for me. And then, once I graduated high school, I got into college, and I was like, man, I've got to get something that keeps my mind off all the stuff of the world, all this negativity, all this, the drugs, there's so much around you at that age. And I was like, man, I've got to get into something now that football's over, something to distract my mind. And that's where my tan truck came from. So I bought it when I was 19 years old. Kind of a funny story behind that too. I used to dip a lot. I'm from the country. I started dipping. I don't know, probably 14, 15 years old, with all my buddies, and all of a sudden, then I couldn't quit. I was like, oh man, I gotta have a dip, all this stuff. And my mom told me one day, she was like, you know what, you really need to quit. And she was like, if you quit dipping, I'll quit smoking. And I was like, okay, fair enough. And so I actually, from that day on, I put dip down and never picked it back up. And every time that I craved just a little pinch, I'd put back $20. That's what it costed for a log back then. And so every time I crave it, I put $20 back. And I eventually saved up some money. One of our buddies told me about a square body pickup, and it was actually in just shy of Dahlonega. Dawsonville is where it was. And so we went and looked at it, and I think I had like $2,000 saved up, and this truck was pretty cheap. I didn't know how much, but they said it was pretty cheap. She had told me that she wanted $1,200 for it. It was her dad's, who had passed away, and it just sat there. And so I told her, I was like, I'll take it. I brought the cash with me. I handed her $1,200, and she said, I don't know if it's going to run, you may need to haul it home, whatever. And I was like, well, I brought a gas jug and a battery. I was like, we're going to give it a shot. We're going to see if it cranks up or not. And whenever I went over there, it was actually sitting in a field under a tree on their farm. And so I go over to it, dumped a little bit of gas in the carburetor, put the battery in. It turned over about 3 times and fired up and idled. And I was like, man, this is meant to be. And so, it just kind of, when it fired up and did not get any tools out of the truck. I put the battery in with a set of pocket pliers that I carry in my pocket everywhere that I go. I didn't get a tool out. And when I was pulling out of the driveway, she stopped me and she handed me $400 back. And I was like, what's this for? She said, my dad loved this truck. We've always loved this truck. It's all, it's not an old truck. It just meant a lot to them being her dad's. And so she handed me $400 back. So there I was with an $800 pickup driving out of her driveway. I want you to really rush. She said, so be it. She said, but I love this color. And I was like, fair enough. It will never be painted. And that's how it is now. So with being only $800 in the truck, I had $1,200 that I could just blow on this thing, and I'm still ahead of the game. And so literally, I don't know, a week later, I slammed it. One of my buddies, Corey Moss, he helped me slam the truck. We lowered it. I think it was like 5.7, and we had cut some springs and did an extra block in the back. And I mean, we had it so low that it couldn't pull out of the shop. We dropped it off the lift, and the tires were so in the fender wells that it literally wouldn't move. This thing was a 305 $700 Ford truck. So it was pretty weak. And so we had to pick it back up, and where it landed from there, I actually drove it for a year, just like that. 305 700, slammed down, rubbed everything, rubbed tires. I mean, I don't know how there's any fender molding left on this truck. And so, that was just how it was. The 305 finally started to give out. I put a 383 stroker that we had in the shop in it, blew the transmission, went through a couple of transmissions, finally got one that hold. And then I found out it could spin tires. Well, at that point, it was only spinning one. So I was like, okay, we got to fix this. I found a Curry 9-inch rear end on, I guess it would be Craigslist back then. And it was $800. I was like, man, what a coincidence. And it was for a square body pickup. It had a 370 gear in it. And so here I go get a 9-inch rear end, throw it in it. And this thing was a ripper. It would spin from red light to red light. I thought it was big horsepower, but it probably wasn't. I don't know, 350, maybe 380 wheel horsepower at most. And I mean, I was tearing up town in this thing. I was slinging it around every corner. I could do donuts in any parking lot. I was being a kid. I was 19, 20 years old. And then a gentleman so I'd actually ran into James and Jane are the owners of this pickup, the original owners. And they actually saw me at the Moonshine Festival with it running, with the big small block in it. And, of course she teared up and came over and gave me a hug. And, they were so proud of how it was turning out and all this stuff. I put some 20s on it. It was actually like some Boss wheels. And they were so proud, all this stuff, and that meant the world to me, that they remembered me, first off. And, second off, that they actually appreciated some of my improvements. And so a gentleman there actually he offered me more money than I had in the small block for that motor. And that's where the LS came from. So that kind of entered me into the LS world. When I had a pocket full of money then, I started doing some pretty serious upgrades at that point. So,
okay. So you've done a great job. This Jimmy Evans guy, I mean, I probably should just be interviewing him, Trevor. I mean, let's be honest. This guy sounds like Elvis. I mean, he's a bad mofo, right? So dad is a pimp, and what a great way to grow up, sitting there, telling dad, hey, put it number 2. And there's been a lot of burnout osmosis that you've learned over the years. So that explains a few things. When you were dipping, was it Copenhagen? Was it Skull? What were you dipping?
Copenhagen, man. That's all there was.
Well, I'm wondering. So you got the Copy, and then it sounds like James and Jan or Jane. Jane, so that's an E. So James and Jane. Now James is the one who passed away, and that's how you guys truck, or what happened to James?
It was actually Jane's, the wife. It was actually her father that owned it.
Oh, okay. So James and Jane, it was her dad. Okay. Did she ever say what her dad's name was?
If she did, I can't remember, to be honest with you.
I wonder if it was on the title. And the only reason I'm saying it is sometimes when, what did you end up naming it? You said the tan truck. Have you given it another name? Because you could call it the Copenhagen truck, because that's how you got it, right? You could call it whatever her dad's name was, or you could just keep it the tan truck. People probably know it as the burnout truck, right? The camper hauler.
Yeah, most people just know it as the camper truck. But I've never named the truck. It's always just been the tan truck to me. Copenhagen would be a good one to call it. That is actually a pretty good one. I hadn't thought of that. And then I saw one the other day that was farmer's tan. And I
Yeah.
thought, since it was on a farm, I thought that was pretty cool. And it's tan and white, just
Yep.
like a farm would be.
Yeah, I love that name, Farmer's 10. There's a kid here, built by Brooks. He had like a 64.56, and it was perfect, right? I always thought that style of truck would be another one I always thought would be good would be Stetson, right? Because, the cologne and, growing up, you're like, there's some slogan. I don't even know, but I'm thinking Kopi. I mean, dude, that thing literally, how many dollars, and it's funny. Now, here's the real question. Is she still tobacco free? Did she stay not smoking?
No, she's a little more.
She's like, I'll make you a deal. I'm going to make you a deal. And then she starts smoking again.
Yeah. Yeah. But hey, that was another one of those life lessons, man. If it wasn't for her saying that, I might never have quit myself, or, I might not have the truck and have all the buddies that I got now from the truck that I've got. So, there's, as far as, stuff like that goes, she might be a little bit more hard-headed than me, but that was a life lesson that I needed. So.
Yeah, it's cool. And it's cool that you are, receptive to, this is where I got, this is where I got because of all the things. And, one thing I don't know that we always think about it when we sit down to do these interviews, but it's cool to hear everything that's gotten you to this point, but it's also cool for you to kind of regurgitate it and say it. And then it makes you realize, damn, I didn't realize that, I stopped dipping and now I got this truck, and then I got these friends, and then I got this, and my mom did this, and my dad did this. And so it kind of, whether it's reminiscent or you think about all the hot rod power tours and you think about all that, and, burning fuel has been a good thing to you.
It has. It definitely has. Burning fuel and burning tires. So, that's what it drives me. I do construction during the day, and this is my escape from reality, I guess what you could say. It's a good way to put it.
Well, I like the quote too, right? It drives me, literally and figuratively. It's like, hey, it drives me, right? It keeps me going to be in the shop and wheeling and dealing and hanging out with my friends. So you have a 383 that you guys had built. You throw it in there. The 305's hurting. You got a year out of it, probably longer than anybody ever thought, because it was sitting out in the farm. And then you end up getting a 9-inch. Did you ever say what happened to the 700 R4? Did that, because there's I can't imagine that thing lived through a 383. Was it paired up with something?
So it was actually I went through 5 transmissions.
So you bought a C10, and it either had AC at one time or it wasn't even an option. Well, Vintage Air has the solution for you. Their SureFit kits are designed to place the evaporator and hoses behind the dash for a factory clean look. In most cases, the SureFit systems will be controlled by your stock dash controls using their exclusive cable converters. The Vintage Air SureFit kits are the best value and the most completely engineered air conditioning system you can install in your C10. Add the fact that Vintage Air has been the most respected name in performance aftermarket climate control systems for 40 years. 40 years? Damn, son. The choice is obvious. VintageAir.com.
Marquet has been in business for over 40 years. It all started in the original owner's garage. From humble beginnings of a couple parts in a garage to a 2-building manufacturing facility making over 6,000 parts, Marquet has grown to be one of the country's premier truck parts manufacturers. They not only design the products, but also design the tooling to build the products, guaranteeing quality control. They have made their original parts from the original trucks. They offer quality parts built by Americans for old American-made trucks. So when you're looking for body moldings, bed strips, bed wood, and so much more, think Marquet. That's mar-k.com.
Hey guys, I've got Andrew from Painless Wiring on. Andrew, what's the latest?
Just working on producing these GM truck harnesses. They're our best moving vehicle specific, and we're just, super excited to be able to service such a great community of truck guys.
Made in the USA. You guys are probably cranking them out nonstop. A ton of our audience is out there buying these trucks, building these trucks, and they know, hey, Painless Performance has got me taken care of.
Factory options, aftermarket stuff. If you have any questions, call our tech guys. They'll walk you through anything you need to know, and we'll make sure your truck gets wired up right the first time.
If you want to clean up your underdash, you want to clean up your chassis, it's that easy. Painlessperformance.com, painlessperformance.com. Thanks, Andrew. Did you ever say what happened to the 700 R4? Did that, because I can't imagine that thing lived through a 383. Was it paired up with something?
So it was actually I went through 5 transmissions.
I figured it was. I was going to say 10. The way.
Yeah. So the 5th one, well, let me back up just a little bit. The first couple were okay until I gotten a little ballsier, gotten a little, I was stretched a little further, which I am the culprit of them running hot. So,
okay, so when you say that, are you just taking 700s and you're not doing anything to them? You're just throwing them in there, so they're kind of just quasi stock 700 R4s, and you're limping them along. They're not like you're sending them off and having them built, right?
No, I'm having them built. I'm spending a lot of money on them.
Okay. And then you're still going through them like sardines. All right.
Yeah. And the 4th one that I finally, and I remember it being number 4, because I had actually talked to them several times about it and been like, look, man, this ain't enough. Well, they built one, and he was like, if this isn't enough, we're going to have to go to desperate measures. We're going to have to increase the billet stuff. We're going to have to start changing these clutch packs, all this. And before I even got on it, I put, 200, 250, and I daily drove the truck too. I can add that in there. I actually drove the truck every single day. And then I drove it to his shop once it hit 253. It might have been about 300 miles. And I told him, I was like, hop in. I want you to see what it does. I said, I've not hit it in this truck yet. I was like, we're going to see how it does. In his parking lot, in the transmission guy's parking lot, I literally just sat there, held the brake a minute, and I had installed a line lock. So that was a burnout maker right there. And I held the line lock and I just let it rip for a second, shifted to second. And I could take this truck, that 383, it wasn't high horsepower, but it's very bottom end torquey. And so I could literally just whip this thing in a parking lot. And I held the line lock, got it spinning, let out. And we went to the edge of the parking lot, turned it around, and went out on my way, literally headed back towards his shop. It just blew the whole blew it to pieces. Blew chunks out the bottom. And that was the first time I gotten on it and did not even have to get out. It coasted into his shop. And so I was like, I guess it's time for desperate measures. And so he actually built me number 5. And that is the strongest 700 R4 maybe on the planet. It held up for that motor for another probably 4 months after that. I think I put I know it was over an oil change, so probably 4,000-ish miles of me just 20-year-old kid spinning tires. And whenever I sold the 383, my buddy Corey, the same guy that helped me lower the truck, he actually bought the 700 for me. He's got a little beefed up small block in a C10 he's got. And it's on bags and all kinds of stuff. And this was, let me see, that was 10 years ago. LS stuff really wasn't big yet. And so he wanted that nice 700. Well, I sold the 383 and then sold the 700. Well, then I bought a 60 4L80. I was like, if I'm going to do it, I was like, I'm going to go as big as I can afford. And I was going to do all that myself. Pulled the cam out of the 60 and the cam bearings came with it. And when I was 20, I guess I was right around 21 at this time. Whenever that cam bearing came out, my heart just sank. And so I was like, oh no, I know what this means. This is machine work. This is built to the gills. Like, now is when I'm going to spend all the money. And so whenever I took it to our engine builder, his name's Johnny Thomas, Traco Engines. He's based out of Cumming. And I took it to him and he was like, let me tear it apart. He's like, it doesn't look good. I don't know how many miles were on the motor. It's just an LY6. So it's a Gen 4 60.
Where'd you get it? What, did you just pull out of a yard, or what? How'd you end up getting the 60?
So I actually made a friend. He was actually like 2 roads up. His name's Sean Henderson. He's known as the LS guy. He gets all the LS engines in our, I'll say community, in our car community, surrounding counties. He's our hookup for LS engines. I got it from him, and it came out of I guess probably a FedEx truck, maybe a UPS truck. And, it was pretty low miles. I think it was like 120, 130. Engine looked good. It was super clean. It was an LY6, the 60 with the big LS3 heads. So I pulled the heads off, all that, took it over to Johnny, and Johnny said it's not good. We'll tear into it, figure it out, see what we got. So about 2 days later, he called me. He said, well, what are you thinking? You want to punch it out or you want to go back stock? I said, which one's going to be the most affordable? He said, I'm not using any of these parts. So they're both going to be roughly the same besides machine work. I was like, well, let's go big. I said, let's go 408 stroker. And he's like, all right, let me see if I can order some parts. And so about an hour later, he called me. He said, bad news. I said, okay. He said, there's no 408 assemblies out there that I can get right now. And I was like, okay. I said, is there any good news in this? He said, well, there's some 416 assemblies out there. And I was like, well, I said, that doesn't sound so bad, does it? He said, I don't know how you're going to keep it cool, but he said, we'll make it work. And so just kind of a little backstory behind Johnny Thomas. He's our local engine builder. He actually built the engine in my dad's race car, some of the cars, that my dad's done, the big block, stuff like that. He's done several of those, just back in the day for him. And this was the first LS engine ever to hit Johnny's shop. Like I said, it's been over 10 years now. And so I take it to him and he's like, I don't know what is going to happen. He said, this thing might last a day. This thing might last a year. He said, I don't know. And so with that being said, he and I done a lot of research together. He did the machine work and I would come over, when I got off of work, and he and I actually assembled it together. So that was really cool. I actually got to kind of get my hands dirty. I'd never done any engine work. I've always installed them stuff, threw motors in stuff and all that, but I've never really gotten inside of them. I've got in the process of all this, I actually built a 69 Camaro of mine with a big block 5-speed, stuff like that. I've done a lot of engine swaps, but never been inside one. So I was really proud of this 416. It was one of the first things it was the deepest I'd ever dug into a vehicle. And so I threw it in, and this truck was a monster. I mean, like 500 wheel horsepower all day. Threw it in. Whenever we first threw it in, I still had the stock 6.0 tune. I had a PSI wiring harness in it with a factory computer. I went and had the 4L80 upgraded, HD shift kit, all the clutches, stuff like that. Just kind of mildly built. Everybody said a 4L80 would hold up well. So I didn't spend a ton of money on it. Got a Circle D converter. The very first thing that I did was balloon one of the Circle D, the $500 converters that they sell. First thing I did was balloon one. And so I sent it back. And let me just say, the customer support at Circle D is second to none. They are awesome. I've always had real good luck. Back then it was Chris. He's actually the owner of Circle D. He dealt with me direct, sent me another converter. That one actually went bad too. And so we upgraded to a triple disc billet converter, a 3600 stall, which is, it was overkill at the time. And so let's just say I had, 2,000 miles on the truck. That's when the good converter went in. And then when we finally got kind of out and about on the truck, got used to the power, I took it to a few local shops to try to tune it, all the computer stuff with it. And it wasn't quite working out. They were changing things up that I didn't want to change. And they were more, they thought it was either more of a race car or more of an old truck. There was no kind of in the middle. And that's whenever that I got with my buddy. His name is Lance Disharoon. Now he actually runs Mill Creek Calibration. That's the name of his shop. And he and I got out, and he's in Dahlonega, Georgia, in Lumpkin County. And so we got out in the middle of the night, and he told me when to bring it up there. He's got kids of his own. So I would go up there, and I was 21. I think he's a year or two older than me. And, we're just two young redneck boys in a truck with a monster LS motor in it going through the mountains. And he's turning it up. He wasn't happy with it. He started over, and so we're just literally street tuning this thing. And we've got a couple hours in it at this point. And he puts a tune in it, and he's like, I think I'm going to be happy with this. By this point, it's 1 a.m. I mean, it's bad late now. And his church is right up the house from it's right up the road from his house. And we're ripping across these back roads, and all of a sudden a cop pulls in, and he's sitting outside on the toolbox with a laptop, trying to adjust a few things. And the cop pulls up and he said, "Boys, what's going on here?" And Lance goes, "We're just trying to fix a few things on this truck." He said, "What's the laptop for?" And he's like, "I'm just trying to get some service." He said, I don't remember what he said, but he just made up something funny with the cop. And he was like, "All right, well, you boys," and my truck looked stock. I mean, it had, at this point, I'd put hubcaps back on it. I mean, it was a farm truck again. And the cop finally left, and he said, "This is our last chance." And he just let it rip on the way to his house. And at that point, he was like, "I'm happy with it. Let's leave it here and see how it does." So I left his house that night. I didn't touch this truck for another 7 years. Actually, it had that same tune in it whenever that I took the truck out to California with the Hoonigan guys and did burnouts with them. It was that same tune that we had done back in, golly, I guess that'd be 2013, 2014, something like that. I mean, a long time ago. And it was the same tune, hadn't touched, literally had done nothing but change the oil in the truck. So at that point, I had put 70,000 miles on the truck whenever I went out to Hoonigan. So, to say that it was a conservative tune, probably, but a reliable tune, 100%. I say conservative. The truck went 1170s all day long at the track. I could pull the camper there and melt 2 sets of tires on my way there and back. I say conservative. It lasted, but it was a pretty bad unit for a heavy stock suspension, stock everything else pickup truck. So
is he still tuning?
He is. So Mill Creek Calibration is his new kind of shop name. He was working with the water department up in Dahlonega, Dawsonville area, kind of just up in North Georgia. And he was he would tune after work. He would tune he's the popular tuner around it. Everybody's got their own tuner. Lance is my tuning buddy. We've become really good friends over all this. Miss Jenny and my wife are real good friends. We're they're like family to me. We just we grew up in different counties, so we didn't technically grow up together, but he did cars and I did. I knew of him. It's kind of a blessing in disguise. I'm really involved in church. He's really involved in church. It's just kind of cool to meet like-minded people, and then him being so good at tuning is just kind of over the top. It's real welcoming that he's such a good dude, and it's even better that he's really good at what he does. You know what I mean? So,
well, and if you're gonna have a buddy, I mean, it's pretty awesome that it's a tuner, especially for you.
You're exactly right. And he's actually got a tan 85 GMC truck. He was after this truck when I bought it. He didn't know that, he just saw, so he actually lives up there by Jane and James. And he saw it was gone one day, and he had asked him about it several times. And so he told me he was going to get as close as he could to it. And he's actually got an 85 GMC, same thing, tan, but it's tan all over.
Mm-hmm.
That truck is now an absolute race car. I mean, like roll cage, 9-inch, big cubic inch LS. I don't know how much that he wants people to know, but it's a real nice LS engine, real big turbo, crazy built transmission. He's actually done sick week, stuff like that in his truck. And it's a deep 9-second truck as it sits. And if I'm going to get outrun by anybody, I think we can make an exception for Lance. I don't know if I'll ever catch him. So
yeah, if you're gonna, it's like, hey, I'm losing to my tuner, and obviously he controls it. So he could be sitting there messing with your tune. You never know. He's like, yeah. I'm like, are you Bluetoothing my shit right now? What's going on?
You'll never outrun your tuner. So
when he sees you pull up and the first time you guys meet, did he put it together that it was the same truck?
So he knew it was the same truck, because he and I had actually talked when it had the small block. I'd seen him out and stuff like that. And he'd seen, back then posting videos and stuff. It wasn't quite as big. I had a couple pictures of burnouts and stuff, but the videos back then, I mean, I was white line to white line. I mean, I swear I wasn't afraid of anything. And the older I get now, I kind of try to stay straight as much as possible, but man, back when it had the small block, I mean, I was white line to white line, stop sign to stop. I mean, I was nuts. And so everybody knew that, you know, I was out here destroying the roads, and most of them had seen the truck. Like I said, social media wasn't big back then. So it's just kind of word of mouth and just knowing people. But yeah, Lance knew the truck, and he told me that he was after that, and I didn't know. You know, I'd never buy a truck out from under somebody. And he told me, and I was like, man, I'm sorry. And he's like, no, look at this. I bought one just like it. So it worked out pretty good.
Sometimes you're better off that there was no social media, you know, to capture so many different events. I look back over my youth, and I'm really happy that there wasn't, everybody didn't have a phone, or AKA a camera in their hand with all the stupid stuff that we did. So, yeah, you kind of have to balance that. One of my questions would be, Johnny, I love that was the first LS in his shop. He grew up, he probably saw you since you were just a little kid coming, you know, with dad. So obviously having that, relationship with him was, you kind of talk about, I had never been that deep into a truck. You know, I mean, literally you're doing heart surgery on your truck and that motor. And it's such a cool thing because some guys don't have that intimate, you know, relationship into the motor. And was it the first LS because he's an older guy and he just was like, hey, I you know, I don't know. I know how to do 350s. I know how to do small blocks. I know how to do big blocks. I don't even know where to start on this. What was the story with that?
So he is a older generation engine builder for sure. He does love the small blocks, the big blocks, build a lot of dirt track engines. He's actually gotten into a lot of Hemis now, the older school Hemis, Ford motors. He's built a couple of the Kazi style engines. Yeah, he just never had the opportunity. You know, he was always the old school small block, big block guy. And you said, I grew up over there. He used to call me Taz. I used to run around his shop and I mean, destroy the place. You know, there's all these milling machines and all these nice fancy machines over there. And here I am, I'm probably, I don't know, 3-4 years old. And I can see it now because that's right where my little boy is. And man, I couldn't imagine my little boy running around his shop. And, you know, he used to call me Taz, and he still calls me Taz. You know, that kind of stuck forever. So, but yeah, I did grow up over there and knowing Johnny and stuff. And it is I like how you said relationship. It is a relationship. You know, I have a lot of respect for Johnny. I've always, you know, so we go to a lot of local shows and stuff like that. And there's never been a single time that he's not said, hey, that he's not, you know, welcomed me wherever I'm at. You know, it is relationships. And I feel like that's a lot of what this community, this car community, this truck community is about is, you know, it's not just a friendship, it's a relationship. You know, you don't just get to kind of meet these people. We get to know each other. You know what I mean? On kind of a deeper level.
Yeah, I mean, hell, like you said, even with Lance, you know, so whether it's Lance or Johnny or all these other different people that you've used, what's cool about it is it's generational too. So, you know, Dad's got a couple different cars, the Chevelle, the 72, you've got, I think you said a 69 Camaro, but I always kind of look at it like we're in the heyday of the trucks now, right? So all the trucks that were just used and abused during the 70s and 80s, the Dodges are cool. The Fords are cool. And obviously we know the C10s, the Chevys, the GMCs, we know that they are, you know, really pretty much second to none. I mean, they made a lot of them. They're out there and the parts are available and they're just something else. So when you think about a young man, I mean, you are young when you got the truck, you're still a young man for everything that you've done in this truck. But it's the same type of stuff your dad was doing in a Chevy too, you know, back in the day. And that was just what they had and that was what was available. And then now trucks have kind of gotten a little bit crazy. And I think it'll be, you know, it'll just work its way to whatever the kids are going to find next that's a little bit cheaper or affordable. I don't know that $1,200 with the $400 rebates out going to ever happen again. I've gotten so many names. You could call it the rebate truck. You could call it Taz because it's funny because if you think about Taz, right, that Tasmanian devil for everybody out there that hasn't put that together, Little Trevor's running around just tearing up Johnny's shop, little dust bowl. Well, every time I see you on social media, you and your truck look like Taz. You're smoking, you're going all over the place. So, you know, there's no shortage of names and just kind of mantras that come to mind for you and in your truck. But that story of and the relationship, and again, you know, the trucks are cool, but the people are cooler, and it's the truck that brings us together, right? We come for the metal, we stay for the people, and it's whether it's Lance, it's the cop. I mean, I was almost thinking, dude, this cop's gonna be like, what are you boys doing? You're like, hey, we're touring this truck. It's like, all right, be safe, you know, don't do something too stupid, you know, depending on what portion of the county you're in. But they, you know who you are, and you're having a good time, and there's a you know, there's a balance there, and you found that, and the people. I love that, you know, old boy Johnny is going to go out of his way, or you're going to see him and you're going to, you know, not necessarily break bread with him every week, but shake his hand, and he's happy to see you. And think about a little kid, you know, who you're talking to, probably one of the biggest spazzes as an adult, let alone as a kid, but high energy. And now he gets to see you, and you're a little shithead that was running around. You know what I mean? That's a pretty fun thing when you look at the journey of life.
It is. And, you know, growing up around all these guys, you know, I have the utmost respect for all of, you know, my dad's friends, all of my mom's friends, all of, you know, all these people that we've really worked around and got to do stuff with. But there is no relationship that I've got that's quite like, you know, my truck buddies.
When you're looking for classic Chevy or GMC truck parts, brotherstrucks.com is your number one source for 1947 to 87 Chevy and GMC truck restoration parts. So whether you are restoring an original or looking to customize that classic truck, brotherstrucks.com has thousands of the highest quality truck parts for you to choose from. So head over to brotherstrucks.com and order your free catalog today. And don't forget to follow Brothers on Facebook and Instagram for daily updates and special offers too.
Hey guys, are you thinking about swapping out your old motor for a more reliable LSLT-based power plant? We've got great news for you. PSI Conversion is offering our listeners 10% off your order. Behind each PSI harness, you get over 10 years of experience in the business, online tech support, phone support, and harnesses made in the U.S. That's psiconversion.com.
You've heard me talk about my gauges, Dakota Digital. I love them. Don't forget the interior of your build. Dakota Digital has the best gauges for our trucks. Whether you want a direct fit into the stock bezel or something custom. These kits are complete with sensors for any engine. The new RTX series is really incredible. I think it stands for retro, but it should stand for rad. They look just like the stock clusters, but have all the technology you'd expect from Dakota Digital. You can change the lighting colors, customize the reading in the message centers, and do it all from the mobile app. That's right, the HDX and RTX series have Bluetooth technology, so you can mess with them from your phone. I'm looking at RPM, trip odometer, percent fuel, oil pressure, and now I have the GPS set up. I can tell you direction, elevation, and even outside temp. Damn, son, it's like a modern truck, but even better in a classic. Dakota Digital is absolutely the best in aftermarket gauges, so check them out at dakotadigital.com. dakotadigital.com. And you can follow them on Instagram and Facebook too.
You know, all these people that we've really worked around and got to do stuff with, but there is no relationship that I've got that's quite like, you know, my truck buddies. Like I've got Lance, I've got more buddies, you know, like one would be, you know, Matt Hux. Twig is a young guy that he kind of grew up watching me, you know, get larger on social media, and I call him Twig. His name's Andrew Thomas, and I didn't even know his name was Andrew for like 2 or 3 years, and now he's like my little brother. You know, he's always down at the shop in all my YouTube videos. He's always there helping me wrench on stuff like that. My nephew Dalton, you know, he looks up to us, and you know, he's right there with us all the time. You know, and I've got you know, all these local guys and all this stuff and all these people that I get to know, and now that social media is big, man, I am I know people in California. I mean, Arizona. You know, I've got some of the best friends I've ever had. Blake Evans is Sweet Patina. I'm sure you've heard of Sweet Patina. He's got my same last name. We're not blood related, but I swear he's one of my brothers. I mean, we have become, I mean, we're really close. I can consider him one of my best friends. You know, people like that. And so we actually went and ate dinner with some of my buddies Saturday night. And they're the Hewitts, Justin and Lindsay Hewitt. So I actually went to kindergarten with Justin. And his dad runs a collision center out in town. And so, you know, I'd say it's been about 10 years ago, they started going on the power tour with us. And so, you know, through the years, not only did we go to school together and graduate together, you know, and kind of party together back then. So we've always been buddies, but we've never been as close as we are now that he literally might have the nicest 85 square body on the planet. It's blue and white. It does have a fuel injected 383 small block in it with a 700. He's got, you know, kind of the setup that I had in this before, but it's fuel injected. And I mean, like top to bottom, like dust free, beautiful truck. And he drives it across the country. And here I am in a factory paint, you know, beat up, just, I mean, like nothing special truck. And he's driving this crazy one that he and his dad built. You know, we go to dinner with them, and they actually had their daughter a week before my son was born. And that was not planned. You know, it's just, so now our baby's getting to grow up together, you know, just cool things, not just connected from being friends, but the relationship that we've gained through hot rods. You know, that's our escape. Whenever Justin and I go do something, like he went with me to LS Fest, he's with me on the power tour. You know, we go everywhere together, and it's not so much, you know, we do family stuff together, of course, but man, we're truck buddies. You know what I mean? Like we're car buddies, and there's nothing in the world out there like a hot rod friend, you know? So.
Yeah, it's cool. It's kind of bringing it all together. And you know, when you're playing football and you're 17 or 18, you're hanging with your football buddies. And I think that you just have to be thankful for your car buddies, your truck buddies, you know, and just like you grew up, there was probably 3 or 4 guys. You might know their name. You might just remember them from their cars that they brought over to your dad's shop. You know, Uncle Todd, right. Uncle Steve, Uncle Jason, and then you just remember your dad probably drinking beer, or you know, like you said, whether he was smoking or had a big old pinch in, and he had a big old pull a Copy in there with some Skull on top, and all these guys, and it's a good time to grow up that way. And you know, one of my biggest things is my dad was in concrete. So we would go to this concrete yard where the guys that he would get all his concrete from, and there'd be 6 mixers in there. And, you know, I just remember like you had to wear a cat hat. You had, you know, they had the old diesel fuel sink parts cleaner, and just the smell, and, you know, and just kind of an old dingy shop, you know, but that was like a treat to get to go to that shop. And, you know, and then those kids, we would grow up with those kids, and they became like your second family that wasn't your true cousins. It was like, I want to go hang out with those kids, you know? So it is a cool journey of how it all kind of comes together. And, you know, and now you're burning rubber daily.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And, you know, from a lot of people probably know me from the Hoonigan video, stuff like that. It had the 416 in it then. And they never really specified what happened at the end. You know, they just kind of cut it, you know, the truck shut off, all this crazy stuff. So last minute, I decided to haul the truck out, because I was like, you know what? This motor has 70,000 miles on it. Like if it's going to die, it's going to die in the burn yard. You know what I mean? And so, you know, we go from Georgia to California. I unload this truck over at their shop, and we kind of take pictures on the loading ramp over there at their mechanic shop, all that good stuff at Donut Garage. And so then the next day we go out to the burn yard, and we let this thing rip. And I mean, there could have been 10 people in this truck and not got my foot off the floorboard. I mean, that was kind of one of those things that was like, I've worked so hard to get here, I'm not going to screw it up now. Well, I never warmed the truck. I was so nervous and all that, never warmed the truck up, nothing like that. So I get out there, and I mean, I'm letting it rip. I mean, hardcore, just melting the tires. And all of a sudden, the truck just shuts off. And I looked down, and it wasn't running hot at the time. I was like, dang. I was like, I don't know what just happened. Well, I could smell antifreeze, and I was like, man, that's so weird. And so I got out, and of course they run over there and give me a high five, and they're jumping up and down, they're super high energy, awesome guys. And, then I after the video was over, I walked over and popped the hood, and it actually, so on an LS motor, they have a backing plate that's kind of like a pressure plate. Like whenever your coolant system builds up too much pressure, it can pop that plate off. Well, not only did it pop that plate off, it had bursted the propeller out the front of the water pump. I mean, like destroyed the water pump. And so there was no fixing it. That was the only thing that I could see that was wrong with it. And so, here I am. Once that, it just kind of shut off, I guess it reached a certain point and the truck shut off. It kind of sensed whatever was going on, maybe a knock sensor or something. Whenever it blew the front out of that, it probably jolted a knock sensor or something and shut off. Well, then I looked back and it was running crazy hot, by this point. And so, on our way back, my buddy out at, man, I just had a brain fart.
Hey, I'll edit it, so don't worry about it, because I want you to sound like $1 million.
Yeah, so my buddy Eric out at Pro Tour in Texas, he had actually reached out to me, and he said that he had an extra water pump. And so what we had done is I actually met him out at Lone Star Throwdown in Texas on our way back. And so we put that water pump that he had brought, he actually put a barb in it for my steam port and everything, so it was all ready to go. We put it in the parking lot at one of the restaurants out there in Texas where that everybody went to kind of hang out that night. And I actually drove it from the hotel next door over to the restaurant. We drove it around Texas, drove it into the show the following day, and then headed home, so it wasn't a complete dud. I did tear it up pretty bad and all that, but I could still drive it. I put another, I don't know, oil change or two, 3,000, 4,000 miles on it. And then decided that motor might be hurt. I wanted to kind of be careful because it was kind of a well-known engine in the area. Johnny built it, all this good stuff, and it had so many miles on it. At this point, I was right around the 74,000 mile range, somewhere in there. And so I decided to pull it. Well, I had an old junk 6.0 sitting over in the corner. And I was like, instead of building this motor back up and slapping a turbo on, I was like, let me just get one of these motors that I've got sitting over here, throw it in the truck. I was like, and let's put a turbo on it. So I reached out to Lance. He was the first person that I talked to about it. I was like, what do I need to do to prepare this thing for a turbo? I was like, I don't know how much horsepower. I don't know how high to turn it. I'm still new to the big horsepower stuff. I was like, I'm just going to kind of ease my way into it. And whenever I was thinking about easing into turbos, I'd actually found a 68 Nova that had a 4.8 with a precision turbo and a 6-speed, like a pretty radical little car. And I bought it because instead of just diving in, I wanted to kind of get my toes wet. I kind of wanted to see what the whole turbo world was like. And this car was flex fuel, it could use E85, stuff like that. And so I got this car, and it was mega fast. I mean, like it was crazy fast. And so I'm driving this car around, and I'm like, yes, turbo's the way. Turbo's the way. Well, a little small block S10 guy that kind of grew up in the area, he has a nitrous small block S10 up in Dawsonville. We went up and ran up the highway. And of course, I was on pump gas at the time, and it overboosted, popped a ring gland on our first little highway pull. Well, he kept coming around and kept coming and kept messing around. So we raced another 4 times, and this motor is knocking like crazy. We're just messing around. Not for big money, nothing like that. We're just playing. And we meet back at the gas station, and my Nova is knocking like crazy. And I'm like, okay, time to go home. Well, I just drove it home. It was already hurt. I just drove it home. Come to find out, it was a ring gland, and it had messed up a few things inside. Pulled that motor out. Then I asked Lance if he had any motors laying around, and he had a 4.8 sitting there. So I actually got it, put it in the Nova, And that is actually the motor that is still in the car right now. That motor is now holding 30 pounds of boost, well over 800 horsepower, stick shift. I just sold it to a gentleman in Indiana, and he's loving it. You know, he's they actually.
So you sold the whole car to the guy in Indiana?
I did, yeah. I just recently sold it after my video with it on the trailer, doing a burnout with it. I sold that car, but before all that, you know, I decided then that a stock motor could probably hold up to what I was doing, you know, just the power range that I was after. And that car was wicked fast. So I ended up doing a 6.0. I put a real big cam in it. I did the turbo. It's a VS Racing 8096. You know, my buddy Taylor Clanton helped me out with a lot of the piping. One thing that Lance told me was to go with a Holley Terminator X Max harness and the computer and all that, so we could control the 4L80. And that is amazing. So I pulled out the PSI that was in it. I put the Holley over in the truck, and it is like night and day difference. I love the Holley setup. Nothing wrong with the PSI, especially on a simple setup. But this Terminator is like second to none. Like, there is no harness out there as smart, in my opinion, as this Terminator. They have the Dominator and all kinds of stuff like that you can upgrade for more race applications. But as far as street, the Holley Terminator X Max is awesome. Knock on wood, never had a flaw with it. It's always been really good. I get the truck done just in time to do the gender reveal for my baby girl. My buddy Justin that I was telling you about earlier, he actually did the gender reveal for me. So he actually did the first burnout in the truck with a turbo. Literally was up till 4:00 in the morning trying to finish it. At 2:00 that day, he was doing a burnout. And I mean, I was pretty jealous, to be honest with you, because it sounded amazing. And so we put pink tires on it, did our gender reveal. Then, you know, following that, literally the next week was Power Tour. So here I am in an untested truck, still don't know a whole lot about the turbo stuff. We take off, and of course I'm battling little things here and there, you know, as a new build. And in St. Louis, I guess it would be Missouri, we were between two hotels. It's kind of a famous hotel right by the arch. And there's a hotel on both sides, and Power Tour people are on both sides. And I mean, like, probably 300 people right here. And so I go through, I tell my buddy, I was like, we're going to rip a burnout right in the middle of these people. And I hadn't gotten on the truck super hard yet. And so he hops in and we go in, and I mean, I just rip right between them. Well, me being me, I'm like, you know what? We got another one. So I turned around and I went to do it again. Well, about halfway between the hotels, it goes from full spool to bogging. I mean, like, it just bogged, just whoosh, boo. And I mean, like, to the point I can't keep it running. And I was like, oh boy, we've hurt something. So I limp it back to our hotel, which is like the next street over, shut it off. Well, we find out it's really bad. I call my buddy Twig and Drew Thomas. He's at work the next morning. He's at work. And so I was like, hey, man, I need you to get my truck and trailer. I need you to come up here. And I mean, it's like a 12-hour drive. He leaves work at 2:00 and he gets up there at literally like, so after I talk to him, we have 1 day left to finish the Power Tour. So I go rent a little Chevy Spark thing, and I make it to our last stop. And by the time I'm pulling in, he turned at the red light behind me, pulling back into the hotel to pick up my truck. So I went over to Ohio to the next stop and came back, I think it was Ohio, and came back. And so here we are. Twig's there. It was a long day for me, long day for him. He was at work. And so we load the truck up, come home, and after Power Tour, you know, a week or so after, I actually ended up with the sickness, whatever was going around. You know, I had the COVID or whatever was going around at the time. And so my stepdaughter actually had it as well, and we were not even together. So I don't know how she had gotten it, but her and I were both home. My wife was at work. So I was like, instead of sitting, neither one of us, thankfully, were too sick. So we go down to the shop, and I'm like, hey, here's an idea. Why don't you help me put this motor in? So we pulled the motor out of the truck, this old stock 6.0, knew nothing about it, pulled it out. I had another random motor over in the shop that I had actually traded a set of wheels and tires for. Don't know anything about it. My buddy Sean Lingerfelt had this motor. I traded a set of wheels and tires for it. Literally, don't know miles, don't know anything.
When you say Lingerfelt, I mean, is there an ER at the end?
No. He's pretty wild with the LS stuff. He's one of the competitive builders around the house. So he's got his own shop and stuff. He's pretty wild. He's got it going on.
Okay.
He might as well have an ER at the end of it because he's the man when it comes to a lot of your LS stuff.
For the audience, just, Lingenfelter is known. I mean, if not, yeah, top, maybe besides NASCAR. I mean, they're up there, right? So you want to spend some big money on a motor, Lingenfelter. And yeah, so this guy's missing the ER part. Hey, before you go further, because we are going to get a twig for MVP, by the way, 12 hours out of work or leaving work, get the truck, get the trailer, do it for the homies. And you want to talk about, the people. So that Twig's the MVP right now.
That's it. Twig really may be the MVP for good. I mean, he's always there to help, and literally at the drop of a hat, he left work to come and get me. I said 2:00. It was actually 10 a.m. It was before lunch when I contacted him.
His boss might be listening, so we're going with 2, just in case. Yeah. Hey, Twig. When did Twig check out that day?
So he came and got me. We got it back home. I'm sick. My stepdaughter's sick. And I told her, I was like, let's just take that motor over there. I was like, this was a nothing motor. I was like, we're sick. We have nothing better to do right now. I said, let's just swap the motor real quick. So I pulled everything out of that motor that was blown up, that was still salvageable. And actually, I let my stepdaughter put the motor together. She put the new cam in. We went with a sloppy stage 2 cam. This is at this point now, we're just at a Gen 3 LQ4. Don't know the mileage, don't know anything. I put cam bearings in it. She slid the new cam in it. I pulled the oil pump off the blown up motor, put it, I cleaned it out as best I could, put it on the new motor, kind of checked everything. I had a random set of 243 heads sitting in the floor. I threw them on it. And then I had picked up a Holley high ram intake from a buddy of mine. He was taking it off his truck, didn't need it. So I picked it up. And so all this is just kind of being thrown together. Haley helped me put it together. We actually dropped it in the truck and fired it up that night. And that was August of 21. And that is still the motor that's in it today. So this motor's been in here for roughly 18 months or so, about a year and a half. And it's a beast. That's kind of how it came to be to where it's at right now. Before that, Lance had just put a bench tune in it. He had never really gotten it on his dyno. Now he's got a dyno and a nice place and all that. So it was so close to power tour. He just threw a safe tune in it, like a little 7-pound of boost tune. Make sure it was good, just drive it, make sure everything's good. And here I am ripping these nasty burnouts in it. Well, I put the new motor in it and I told my stepdaughter, I was like, let's go try it. I was like, I'm not going to baby it. I was like, this thing's going to be driven like this every day. I said, the other motor made it for a little while. Let's see how long this one will last. So I'm running around on 7 pounds of boost and this thing's a rocket. I mean, it's not the same truck. And she's even like, this thing's crazy. So another buddy of mine, he is a upcoming photographer. He actually runs a magazine called Everything Fast. Owen, I call him Owen K Photo. His name's Owen Keys. And he was kind of an upcoming photographer guy wanting to become big in the car world. So I call him out, and by this point I'm over my sickness, but I'm not back at work yet. And at this time I'm actually living in my camper in the backyard because my wife was pregnant. And so all this is kind of adding up to a big deal. So I have to move my camper now. It's in the middle of the backyard. So I hooked my tan truck up to it and I called Owen. I was like, I just got a new motor put in this truck. I was like, come on and take a picture of it, melting the tires with this new motor. Well, my stepdaughter hops in, he hops in, we go right up the road. We didn't go far just in case.
With the camper in tow.
With the camper in tow that I just lived in for 2 weeks. And so we're right at the road. I tell my stepdaughter, I was like, you video, Owen's going to be taking pictures for his magazine, stuff like that. and this thing just rips. I mean, like, I had not done big burnouts with this new motor yet. And it just, I mean, rev limiter, shift gear, rev limiter, and I mean, just held pretty as could be. So I come up to the stop sign. They jump in. We're like a bunch of kids trying to get back home before anybody can see us. And we make it back home and all this. Photos are incredible. The video is even crazier because I got on my two-step and did all kinds of like funny things, just trying to really just testing the truck out. And, kind of led up to where that I am now. I went to get hay in the truck the next day. Her and I went, did a big burnout, leaving the Cherokee feed and seed is what the store is called that we get. So I actually have a bunch of goats and chickens and all that. We went to go get goat hay and chicken food and all that stuff. So we went out there, and of course the guys recognized me. This is, a year and a half ago. And of course I have to do this big monster burnout, and it was nasty. And I mean, the back loaded down with corn food, with chicken food, corn, 2 bales of hay. And this thing just ripped the nastiest burnout I've ever done without brakes. I'm just trying to get up the road at this point, and this thing is ripping. And so I get home, unload everything, and I tell Lance, I texted him. I was like, man, we need to get this thing on a dyno. I said, this thing's ripping. He's like, we really need to dial it in. He said, you're not even on E85 yet. He's like, there's a lot left in that thing. He said, why don't you bring it up this weekend? Let's try it. At this point, it's about January or so of 22. I bring it up there, and he always wants to do the base tune. Whatever he put in it, he wants to give it a shot, see how it does. On 7 pounds of boost, this thing made 521 horsepower at the wheels. Very first pull. And he was like, that's pretty healthy, for a nothing 6.0 and I mean, not to, I will never talk down on BS racing, but it's more of an affordable turbo. Precision is real high end, stuff like that. But I'm on a $600 turbo here. I mean, like nothing special. And we turn it up a little bit. We end up getting like 650 wheel horsepower out of 93 pump gas. Well, he's like, here you go. Let's drain the 93 octane. Let's put E85 in it. Well, the truck made 650 wheel horsepower on 93. To get a base tune for E85, we did nothing but swap fuel over. No plugs, no tune, no nothing. And the truck made 730 on E85. So an absolute huge jump in power. And so at 730 horsepower, here we go. And, the truck feels ridiculous. It looks ridiculous now on the dyno. Well, he starts adding boost to it. So here we go. We're making big numbers now. Well, we had eventually got to 822 wheel horsepower. That was only on 16 pounds of boost. So this poor little 6.0 has some poor little turbo on it. We're making over 800 wheel horsepower with it. And, we start tickling a little boost, tickling a little time. And, I haven't really released any of those numbers out, but, I have a reliable tune right now in the truck that makes 822 wheel horsepower. And that's where I kind of try to leave it, for the people that ask, they get that number, they get the 822. So, I've just recently took it to the track. The truck's crazy fast. I didn't realize, how fast it was. I posted a video where it went 1061 at 134 miles an hour. Ridiculous. I'm still on stock suspension with an eBay lowering kit. I'm still on eBay drop spindles. Like nothing, I did this stuff when I could afford it back then. And now it's just developed into what it is now over, buddies that I've met, people that want to help me out. Curry Enterprises, John Henson, those guys, they've helped me out. The rear end's in tip-top shape. John Tessier, the guy that built the transmission, I call him Tranny John. He's the only guy that I will ever use. I still, little cool story, I'm still running the same Circle D converter that I was 70,000 miles ago. And I mean, it's like unbelievable. And then this poor little 6.0 that I'm literally testing it out every single time I crank it up.
We call it it's the Haley built.
It's the Haley built motor. You're right. And I mean, she put it together.
You got me on that. As one of my questions is, dude, what in kind of suspension and have you beefed that up? And then really the camper. So I always kind of assumed that the camper was bought specifically for what you're doing, and it sounds like it might not have really happened that way.
So the suspension on the truck, it's just factory suspension, lowered down a little bit. Still got leaf springs. It's actually got a block in there to kind of help a little bit. The only serious upgrade is the cow tracks in the back. You know, that's really my only performance mod, you could say, to the suspension. My frame is not even C-notched. You know, as low as this truck is, nothing's ever been cut. I never notched anything on it, cut any holes in it. You know, no C notches, anything like that. You know, an upgrade would be to possibly put a helper bag on it, you know, to kind of help it, you know, because I do pull stuff with it. That's kind of why that I'm building the dually, so that I won't have to one of these days. You know, but as far as suspension goes, I'm pretty happy with it. It rides like a stock truck. That's one of the things that I love about it. I can run 90 miles an hour down the road and it feels like you're in a new truck. It actually rides better than my Duramax does. And then, you know, you mentioned the camper. I love the subject because it was really more of an accident than anything. I sent it to my wife on Marketplace a couple years ago, and it was a 72 Travelier, white with a blue stripe. It was just in good shape. The lady that had owned it, she had actually just remodeled it. She put real hardwoods, like 3/4 inch hardwoods in this thing, and you know, just did a few upgrades on it. Nothing major, but like a newer fridge. She updated all the mattresses, stuff like that, like all kind of the seat cushions, all that stuff. So everybody thinks it's a prop, or they think that, you know, it's gutted, but I mean, I lived in it for 2 weeks when I had COVID. And I love camping. My childhood background, we always went camping, stuff like that. So I really do use it. Little man stays in it. You know, he plays in it at car shows when we take it, stuff like that. So, you know, we enjoy it. Everybody does think it's a prop and all that good stuff, but all reality, I bought it to use. And that's, you know, I've hauled it up to Pigeon Forge for Shades of the Past. I pulled it up there with my truck over the mountain. My wife and I and stepdaughter, we camped in it for the weekend and, you know, had a good time. You know, I love the camper. The electricity works in it. The stove works in it on propane, you know, so it's a real usable, you know, just regular old camper that, you know, it matches the truck now. My buddy Matt Hucks, he works with Tim Hewitt and Justin Hewitt out at Cumming Collision. He's one of my buddies, and he actually painted the stripe on it to match my truck. And so that's where it's landed. I've recently put a new awning on it, and that's really the only thing that I've done to the whole thing. So it's another family heirloom, I guess.
Well, and if you think about that, you think about even the truck. I mean, you've done a lot more with less, if you think about it. So what you're doing is you're kind of having the maximum amount of fun. And I don't even know, you could probably squeeze even more juice out of that, but you're having a lot of fun with an old truck that, you know, you got for, let's just say it $1,000. You probably got a smoking deal on the camper, and it's you're just bringing it all together. I got to think you probably need a tire sponsor if you don't have one already.
So a tire sponsor would be awesome. I would say the closest thing that I've got to a tire sponsor is my buddy Chris McBrayer out at Silver City Tire. He and his wife run the tire shop. They keep my white walls in stock for me, you know, anytime I need it. I actually, the set of tires that are on it now, I texted them on Saturday morning. They don't even work on Saturdays, and was like, "Hey man, you going to be at the shop?" He said, "Bring it on. I know what you need." And so me and little man went out there, done some circles in the parking lot, swapped the tires over, you know, just had a good old time, you know, with little man. You know, we just got to go do a little bit of family stuff with Chris. You know, he's one of my good friends in the community, in the car community. You know, and you had mentioned, you know, just kind of getting good deals on this and that, man. I want to be proof that anybody can do what we're doing. You don't have to be big dollars. You don't have to have something big and fancy and perfect. You know, go out there on your own budget and go have fun with it. That's what it's all about. I try to tell and like twig some of these younger guys around the house, save up your money and do one part at a time. My truck wasn't built overnight. You know what I mean? It started out from a 305 to a 383 to a 60 to a 416. And, it's evolved in this over 10, 12 years. I definitely couldn't have built this truck overnight. And all these kids get discouraged these days over, well, they didn't like this or somebody says something about it. There's more people out there that don't like my truck than do like my truck. Oh, I hate the hubcaps. Oh, I hate this. Man, just do what makes you happy. That's what matters. You know what I mean? I just want to prove to the younger community, the older community, I'm not doing anything that I do to impress people. I'm doing what I'm doing just to have fun on my own budget. If I sold all my cars, I might could have one really nice one, but I couldn't enjoy a high dollar truck the way that I enjoy this. I'd be afraid I'd tear something up. So I just go out there and have a ball with what I've got, with something that I bought 12 years ago, just upgrade a little bit at a time, stuff like that. So, little word of encouragement, don't give up just because it's not where you want it to be, because you're just, it's more of a time than an expense whenever it comes to hot rods. I grew up with the mentality of, if I didn't know how to fix it, then I tear it apart. And what's the worst that happens? I accidentally fix it. It's a mentality thing. All of it's just mentality. You just do the best you can with what you've got and upgrade when you're able to. Rome wasn't built overnight, and I can guarantee you none of these trucks are built in a week.
Well, and ultimately, I love the encouragement, but without a doubt, ultimately what it is as adults, and I don't know that I'm that much smarter, that much wiser, but what I do know in my own life is that when you go through those struggles and you go through those trials and tribulations and you have that journey over a year, 2 years, 10 years, the struggle is real, if you will. You look back fondly on that, and it's kind of like having your first car. You're probably really not loving your first car. Maybe you did a burnout, maybe your buddy pulled the power brake, maybe you did some things, but you look back and you're like, I'm kind of glad that I had that. I didn't get that fancy car or truck or whatever. And you don't have to have your truck completely show ready, completely done, completely painted, completely perfect. Enjoy the ride. You know what I mean?
You're right. Exactly. And I feel like, perfection on this truck would slow me down. You know what I mean? It's perfectly imperfect. And that's what I love about it. 'Cause it's unique and it's just different. My whole life, I've just kind of blended in and done things and done this because somebody else did it. This is my personality that I can actually let out, just some wore out old pickup truck, just out here having the most fun that I can afford to have. So, just good times, just out here having fun.
Having a good time with what I can afford and having a good time, and you're making it look fun. You are having a good time. What's next? What's next for, Trevor? You got something with the truck? You got something that we don't know about? There's so many things going on family wise. So, what's 2023 have in store for you, family, trucks, cars, whatever?
So as far as 2023 goes, Twig and I are actually working on the dually, and before I ever started, he's been wanting a hot rod and he's been trying to save up for this and trying to do that. And I told him, I was like, man, I've got a dually down there with a blown up big block in it. I was like, you help me throw an LS in it. I try to pay him all the time for helping, and he won't accept it. He won't let me pay him. So this year, my plan is for he and I to LS swap that truck. We're going to put an MV 4500 in it. So it's still, 5-speed. It was a big block 4-speed truck. Now it's going to be an LS 5-speed truck. And my plan is for him to drive the dually on the power tour and me to drive my C10. So, and they kind of match. They're about the same color. So it'll be cool to have them together. And, after this, after the dually, I recently since I sold the Nova, I recently picked up a 1960 Impala, 4-door on air ride.
Is it blue behind you?
So the blue one I drove to high school, that's my Bel Air. That's a 2-door. And
okay, because I could see that, and I'm like, damn, look at that thing. And it's pretty far in the background for the audience. He's got it hidden.
Yeah, that's a blue 1960 Bel Air. It's actually got a 383 stroker motor in it. I drove that car to high school. And but I picked up a 1960 Impala. It's a 4-door for the babies. And on air ride, all original, straight 6. It's an automatic, so it is a true slug. It is bad slow, but so my goal is to pull I want to do the same setup as what's in my truck in it, but I want air conditioning. So my goal is to do a 6.0 since it's a 60. So my wife had actually, the first car gift that she got me was about 5 years ago. She got me a 78, 75 on 3 turbo. Super simple, super affordable. And that's the turbo that's going to go on that car. It's a family car. I'm going to put the turbo on it that she got me. So it's going to be a 6.0 turbo, air conditioning, 4L80, Holley Terminator X Max, basically the same setup as this. And, I want to take these babies around the country and enjoy it just like my dad did for me. I just want to pass it down. I'm not going to force it on them. I just want to encourage them and show them, what kind of real, true relationship is, because I have people all the time approach me and they're just like, and it's funny because I'll know if they know me from Instagram because they'll say, "Hey, Evan, what's up, man?" And that's kind of one of the funny parts about social media, because I know if people know me from Instagram just by what they call me, or if they've known me forever, they call me, Trevor. But I just want my kids to see the family that's out there beyond just what's, right here at home. I have more friends out of the state than I do right here where that I live. So, and it's all kind of conjoined with these hot rods and these trucks, just cool, fun stuff that I get out and do. And then I'm, have the opportunity to do. So.
Yeah. You really are. You're kind of a microcosm, the story, generational, and passing it on and building fun things with the family for sure. So you talked a little bit about it. Somebody might say, "Hey, Evan," and so it's Evan Trevor's, right, versus Trevor Evans. How did that come about when you made your IG?
So when I was in college, I was a bit of a party animal. I stepped out from under my parents' umbrella, and I moved into my grandmother's old home place. And I hung out with a lot of kids that I went to high school with. And one of the kids that I grew up playing ball with, he's an Atlanta police guy now. And it's kind of funny to say because, we party together all the time. And his name, I'll say his first name is PJ. I won't give away his last name. But he came in one night after a Braves game. He and a couple friends went down, and he brought a guy that I didn't know. And I was like, "Hey, PJ, who's your buddy?" And he was like, "Oh, this is so-and-so." And he's like, "This is the guy." And he was having a good time that night.
He was smashed.
Pretty smashed. And he walks over and he's like, "And this is my buddy, Evan Trevor's." And he never, cracked.
He didn't miss a beat.
That was it. From then, he never called me Trevor after that. It was always Evan Trevor's. And so it just, it was weeks and weeks, and that was all he called me. And I was like, that kind of has a ring to it. I was like, I'm going to make that my Instagram. So that's how that randomly landed.
Well, and I like whether it was accidental or not, funny or not, but you ran with it. And now you kind of know, like somebody sees you, somebody sees it on there and they're like, "Hold on, is it Trevor or is it, Evan?" And hey, it's like, you know what, dude, I don't even care. You can tell me whatever you want it to be. That's what it'll be. All right. Well, you, Power Tour is just around the corner. You've got summer to get ready, or have you got a few months to get ready for Power Tour? Get Twig's ass out there. And I hope you got the MV4500 for the dually, because they're damn near impossible to find. So knowing you probably got 3 of them on the shelf next to the 3 spare 6.0s. Yeah, let everybody know. Obviously, we've kind of told them where they can get a hold of you on IG, any other socials, your YouTube. How else can they see everything that you've been doing?
Yeah. So my Instagram, like we mentioned, it's Evan Trevors. My YouTube is Hot Rod Homestead. I'm still getting out there, still learning the YouTube thing a little bit. So you have to bear with me. I'm still getting used to being on camera, stuff like that. And then my TikTok is at Evan Trevors. And if anybody needs anything or needs to reach out or anything, Facebook, it's Trevor Evans. You'll find me. It's my tan truck's all over it. So I know Facebook's hard to find people, but my real name's Trevor Evans, and I'm not afraid to, I have no secrets in the hot rod world. So if there's anything somebody needs, shoot me a DM, shoot me a message, whatever, check out my YouTube, and that might answer most of your questions. So I've got my C10 that actually the build where Haley and I did it. For the C10, I've got that build for the motor and all that on there. The dually, of course, the starts of the Apache, just kind of here and there, and any way that you need to reach out, just reach out.
Awesome. When we started, he was in the cab of the 85, the tan truck. It was light out. He's got amazing property because there's more trees just in my picture than there is probably in the square mile of Arizona. Obviously in Phoenix, where I'm at, there's not a lot of big pine trees. It's pretty thick there, but it's starting to get dark there. I could tell. So we're about 3 hours off. So it's got some hot food waiting for you. We appreciate it. And for you guys out there, give him a follow, give him a like, and you won't be disappointed. Trevor, as always, thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Good stuff, right? I told you. Hey, if you don't already, give him a follow at Evan Trevors. So at Evan Trevors. Yeah, it's a little bit backwards, but hopefully you enjoyed that part of the story. And then Hot Rod Homestead on YouTube. So give Trevor a follow, and we do appreciate it. We hope you enjoyed the pod. If you haven't had a chance, I'm telling you, go check out 259 and then 258, or 258 and then 259. Either way, we're glad you're tuning in. We appreciate it. Check out all those pods. A few shows, May 5th, 6th, and 7th in Mobile, Alabama. You've got Battle in Bama. Love that show. It's a great show. Craig Raleigh puts that on. You get to have tacos on the ship on Friday night. And then the show is amazing. The atmosphere, the hotels, everything. Battle in Bama, May 5th, 6th, and 7th. And then the C10 Nationals. That's in Fort Worth, Texas, and that's May 12th, 13th. So 12th and 13th. That's a good one. I've been out there. I went to the first one. I haven't been in a few years. One of my favorite things was we got to ride on the track, or we got to drive our trucks on the track. I can't remember if you get to do that anymore. It's a good time. Great little area. Tons of cool restaurants. And obviously, Texas does it, and they do it right, and they do it big. So C10 Nationals, 12th and 13th. All right, guys, have a great week. Stay out of trouble. Do what you do. Please take the time. Share it, like it, love it. Leave us a review. We want to hear what you got to say. If you got a guest, let me know. If you got an idea, let me know. If you got a product, let me know. Ronnie at Truck Talk Media. That's RONNIE at trucktalkmedia.com. It's that easy. Peace.